Now, what about green energy? That little girl talked about skateboards and bicycles, and, she's a little girl. But we hear from adults that electric cars are better for the environment and good for America. Robert?
New York Times reporter wrote that the electric car has long been recognized as the ideal solution because it is cleaner and quieter and much more economical than gasoline-fueled cars. That's the New York Times, November 12th, 1911. We've been hearing about the future of the electric car for a century. The history of the electric car is a century of failure, tailgating failure. Why do we use gasoline? Because gasoline has 80 times the energy density of the best lithium-ion batteries. Why didn't electric cars catch on in Edison's day? Because batteries were lousy. Today, batteries are still lousy. They're too heavy, they're too finicky, and they cost too much. And that's why we use gasoline. It's why we use diesel fuel, because it's an incredibly energy-dense, flexible, easy-to-use product.
And the other hype about the electric car is it's better for the earth.
Well, if you think that coal's better for the earth, then fine. But, I mean, that's where most of our electricity comes from coal-fired power plants. It's pretty hard to make an argument that coal and natural gas, an aggregate on the grid, are less polluting than the gasoline out of the cars. It's kind of a wash.
And even the environmentalists have now come around to say, okay, electric car is not so great. Someday. Next myth. Politicians tell us if we just use more ethanol in gasoline, we'll create
a nation that is stronger, cleaner, and more secure.
A stronger, cleaner, more secure. I'm for that.
Every last word of that is incorrect.
Attaboy, Jerry.
It turns out it's not cleaner. If you take evaporative emissions into consideration, ethanol has more emissions of hydrocarbons, of nitrogen oxides, of non-methane organic compounds, and air toxics. And so ethanol, when you take evaporative emissions into consideration, what comes up when you refuel it, is bad for the environment. It's not good for the environment. It also has a higher...
Even Al Gore has come around on this and say, oops, we shouldn't have forced it into gasoline.
And virtually every environmental organization has come around on that front. And we simply, even if that weren't the case, we don't have enough corn.
But we're all forced to use ethanol. Finally, later in this show, I'll talk to Sarah Palin, famous for saying, drill, baby, drill. And people think more drilling would make a huge difference. Robert, truth or myth?
Well, look, I'm in favor of drilling. You're going to wait a long time for me to say that it isn't positive for the economy.
Drilling might bring in another 1 million barrels of oil.
Yeah, if the oil geologists are correct about what we are likely to find in these areas which we have not thoroughly explored yet, and they may be wrong. But if their mean estimates are correct, we could probably get about 800,000 barrels of crude oil production a day from Anwar, when that field is maturely producing.
Per day? Sounds like a lot.
And 200,000 barrels in the off the coast of the United States, which is currently off limits to the industry.
So for 1 million barrels a day.
1 million barrels a day in an 88 million barrel a day crude oil market, world crude oil market, translates into about a 1% reduction in price. Now, that's all well and good, but 1% reduction in world crude oil prices is not going to be noticeable by most American consumers.
Thank you, Jerry Taylor and Robert Bryce. We've just begun debunking the myths. Coming up, we'll see what Sarah Palin says about drilling making a difference.